Hello, and welcome to another Cloud Podcast, a podcast designed to bring you stories from the smartest minds in IT, operations, and business, and learn how they're using cloud technology to improve business and the customer experience. All right. Well, hey, welcome to another Cloud Podcast. Today, we are very excited to have David Katzman. He is the head of customer experience and strategy for Onshape division at PTC. So David, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Alex. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. And Artie, the co-pilot for today. Thanks for coming on to be the co-host as usual.
Co-pilot as usual. I got to get my pilot's license just so I could officially be the co-pilot. But a pleasure as always. And David, looking forward to the show.
No, same here. Thanks, Artie.
Yeah, we got to get you your little wings and a hat, and then it'll be official. And we'll see what happens. I know we've got little kids running around. They might pop into the door here. 2-year-olds over there.
Here, so we'll see. Whatever it is, it is. It's the new way of working these days.
It's the brave new world now with work from home. So we'll see how that goes. But David, let's just take a quick background so people that don't know you can get an understanding of who you are, where you came from in your career, and how you ended up over at Onshape in that division for PTC. Give us like a 2 to 3 minute just background on your career path to getting to customer experience there.
Sure, my pleasure. So. My background actually starts, I was a computer engineering degree in economics undergrad. And so I was very much on the technical side. I actually interned at a company called SolidWorks, and then, which we'll come back later in the story for how I ended up at Onshape. But decided I didn't want to go directly into the technical field right away. So ended up working for Deloitte Consulting out of college in strategy and tech consulting for a number of years on a bunch of great projects all around the country. And after that, went and got my MBA at Tuck up in Dartmouth. Mm-hmm. And then towards the end of my MBA, I was actually going back to Deloitte, but I had this amazing offer to go join the Onshape team. John McElhaney gave me a call. I knew them from my SolidWorks days and just previously in life, and asked if I'd come, join the team, jump on board. I got to be honest, it was a tough decision. I love Deloitte, and I thought very highly of that. I was going back, but there was just this pull towards Onshape into this transformative technology. And so actually with the support of some of the people I knew at Deloitte, decided to jump ship and give it a shot. And so I've been with the Onshape team now for 6 years. We were acquired by PTC about 18 months ago. And over those 6 years, I've had a variety of roles. Most of the time, my job was to either close a gap or find a new problem to solve. Started in what we call business development, a lot of partnerships and some of our technical relationships with the likes of Apple or Google. From there, actually, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, but we started selling the product at this point, and we realized we needed this other thing called, at the time, this whole industry buzzword of customer success. We didn't really know what it meant, but we started it. We created a group, and it's morphed and changed over the last 4 years since then, 5 years, I think, actually now, into a variety of different things of what we deal and how we work with our customers. But built that out. We built out a whole new way of working with our customers from a technical perspective, which we created this group called Tech Services. It's a combination of a lot of factors. And then eventually, a lot of my time was spent really understanding our product market and the fit and where the technology aligned with the market and how do we bring the two together. And so what we realized was our value really was much more in the mid-market and up, of where we could really transform how businesses did their design work. And so we actually built out our enterprise sales function. Enterprise sales is another loaded term. It means a lot of different things, but built that out. And then towards the end, before we were acquired, went full circle and rebuilt a lot of our go-to-market strategy around this in-market and really attacking the industry. And so we were acquired back in the end of 2019 by PTC. Love it there. It's actually been a blessing for the entire Onshape family and hopefully our industry. And now my role is I'm responsible, we call it customer experience and strategy, but it's really several functions, and it's kind of an umbrella of what we call customer success, which for us means post-sales account management, renewals, really focusing on the outcomes of our customers and working with them. To me, and we talk about this all the time around Onshape and PTC more broadly, the term customer success is really kind of a misnomer because everybody's really involved and invested in the success of our customers. So that's one function. We also have tech services, which again, we can talk about, but it's really the pre and post sales application engineering for our customers, working with them, everything from first demo to implementation and tough challenges down the road. And then we have our strategy, which is more business development partnerships, tech partnerships, business partnerships. And then last, we have business analytics and business insights. And so we work on that with the data side of the equation. So we have all this data as a modern SaaS platform, you can imagine. So how do we harvest that data into knowledge? And so that's what we put under the umbrella of customer success and our customer experience and strategy. And it's been a lot of fun. I've been very lucky to work on some pretty cool projects, work with some great customers. And the Onshape team as a whole, everyone on the team is so impressive, and our technology is so much fun to be around. So it's been great.
Yeah, and David, tell us a little bit more about Onshape and what you guys do, and then also what the customer journey is. What is the first time they contact you, second, third, fourth? What's the life cycle? How often do they contact you? Things like that.
Sure. No, happy to. So in a nutshell, Onshape is a modern cloud SaaS-based product development platform. So think CAD, computer-aided design, everything from parts and assembly and drawing, modeling, the old school, everything that was used to be done on paper and pencil, then went to Windows. Now our job was to really transform the industry. What we believe is probably one of the last industries to lag to the modern era, modern way of thinking. So everything from collaborative design, real time, there's no such thing as files in our system. And really what we try and do is, the technology is really cool, but really it's the underpinning, the foundation for what we try and do is help our customers transform their business. So if you think about an old process for design products, if you think about a whiteboard and you put their whole design process on it, and you took a couple products and you said, okay, we're going to switch out those products with Onshape. It's interesting, and it's probably going to add value because you're going to get rid of some of the real natural pain points of crashes. But if you really say, wow, our process is 45 years old, or even more, if you think about paper and pencil, it's not that different. How can we change it with new technology? That's the value we try and bring to our customers. That's the message we're trying to really resonate with them, and spending time on it. And this comes from you asked about our journey. From the first time they land on our website as prospects that know nothing about us, through their self-discovery, through working with our sales team, and then eventually on the customer side after they, there's a whole journey. When you pay money, doesn't always make you a good customer yet. There's a lot of work that comes after the first transaction of actual adoption and learning of how to actually succeed. And that's our job as a business across the board, is to make sure that journey from, again, the first land on our website through hopefully years of renewals and being advocates is successful and is fruitful and as fun as possible. I think there's no such thing as an easy transition, and our industry is no different. In fact, my guess is our industry is one of the hardest to help people transform and migrate their data or their process, because we're working with engineers who are incredibly typically risk averse, which is ironic because their entire job is innovation. But they have deadlines just like everybody else. They have costs that they have to manage. And so what we are there to do, especially on the CS and customer experience side, is to make sure that they feel safe and that they feel comfortable moving along the journey with us, because it is a journey and it's not going to happen overnight. There is no quick fix, and there will be bumps along the way. And that's just the reality, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And especially working with developers and engineers, right? And like you said, they are risk averse, but I think once they get used to the product and once they get used to the new process, it really can grow their organization by leaps and bounds.
Well, it's exactly. And actually, they don't want to go back, right? You hear the story all the time. It's their fear of switching, fear of transformation. But once you get there, you realize, oh my gosh, you don't even know the pain that you've been in for years, because it's natural, right? Workarounds become just work. That's just the way you do things. You don't even necessarily appreciate it when, I remember the old days of, using a program and all of a sudden, your computer crashes and you go, when did the last time I hit save? Like that fear, that panic that always kind of comes. And now it's gone. Like I don't even think about that anymore. I haven't thought about that in forever. Or go back to the old consulting days, you start saying around the PowerPoint with, version final 2. It's like, well, now what? Is there a version final 3? Who finished it? Is it done or is it not done? And so, all of those artifacts of the legacy way we were doing things, and that's no one's fault. That's just the way the technology was. Now our job is to make it better.
Yeah, I gotta love that auto save feature now. And also when you're, leveraging the cloud and got a SaaS based product, it's, you're designing things in the background for your end customers and users to leverage without even knowing about it. So that's pretty amazing. Let's talk a little bit about your team. We talked a little bit before the podcast, and we talked a little bit about professional services and tech services, and let's drill into that. What's the difference? Is it the same? Is it all aligned underneath the customer success umbrella? How do you guys define it there at Onshape?
Yeah, sure. So and this is specific to the Onshape group at PTC. So PTC has a professional services arm, which does a lot of what you would think. The way I think about it is professional services have a statement of work and a deliverable at the end. And so we typically don't work that way on the CS or tech services side of the Onshape family today. We are more partners on a journey. And so their journey is using our product successfully, and we are there to support them along the way. If there was, say, where I would draw the line is if they needed to do a custom coding implementation of something, that's professional services work. That's where we'd engage our professional services arm at PTC, or maybe another partner that we have. We have a great network of partners, but our team will advise and support. They won't actually write the code to do that independent professional services. The reason we actually created what we now call tech services rather than application engineering or pre-sales demo guy 1 or woman 2 is because we really wanted to blend the experience across their trajectory for our work with our customers. And so our tech services engineers are capable of doing everything from a demo to an implementation call to how to troubleshooting with an implementation or an execution, or how to model something better. They're well versed in all of those. Now they specialize in their day-to-day, but we brought it as a program, and we have leaders that think holistically about all of those pieces of the puzzle. And it's been I think it's been a great success. Now I have to admit, whenever you create a new name for something, you have more time explaining it than you actually have anything else. But I think it's worked really well. And we have the best in the industry in my mind, so it helps.
Yeah, it's interesting because tech services requires a lot of technical expertise, of course, right? How does the organization look as far as, so you have a customer, I'm assuming like a customer success managers that manage the accounts, and then they align with the tech services team as they need more complex things solved for?
It's exactly it. So the customer success team is not responsible for the technical implementation. They're the relationship team. They're there to, they run the QBRs, they'll run the kickoff calls. The technical team is there as their partners, and that's exactly what they are. They know where their strengths are, they know where their weaknesses are, and so they try and balance each other out as best they can. And we've gone to the point with, again, some of our tools and just the team, the way they've grown. Now it's, this is a CS driven call and tech services may or may not even be on it, or this is a tech services call and CS may or may not even be on it. And it lets us scale, especially globally, much quicker than we would have been able to had we not kind of devised and figured this out. We also have we cheat a little bit, right? Our system, because it is SaaS, we know a lot. We know a lot about what our customers are doing. We understand where they're struggling. They can share data with us real time. We can't see anything without them giving us explicit permission. But if they choose to, we can be incredibly efficient with that. And that's gone a long way for us, really kind of what I would say, creating the best experience possible.
Let's talk a little bit about how your team collaborates internally. Are you guys using a ticketing system? How are you recording the interactions internally so that, if I'm on CS, but I got to pass it over to tech services and vice versa, or if I got to collaborate while on the call, maybe with like a real-time communication tool like Teams or Zoom or Slack, how do you guys organize that? Has it been successful? Has it not been successful? What are the pros and cons?
Yeah, so we use a variety of tools. We use the fastball down the middle, if you will, from a baseball reference. We use Salesforce, we use Slack, and we use Teams are the kind of primary tools across the teams. Then we also use we use Churn Zero, which you may know of as a customer success tool. A lot of that is for our automations and for our segments for how we do that. But when it comes to the team collaboration, everything has to get recorded in Salesforce. And we also have these things called next actions, where we actually can record, or CS items. We can record, hey, this is a good check-in for this next person to go do this next thing with this customer. And it will literally lead each other down a path. And so it's just very transparent. And that's the key, is that it's very easy to know what's happened, who's doing what, and who has the next action on any account, any situation. And we actually use the same collaboration with our sales team, our sales colleagues. And so when it comes time, we're on a call with a customer, everyone, hey, we're actually going to add a few people to the company next month. Hey, great. Why don't we bring in our sales team to talk about the commercial aspects of that? And they're really good about really aligning on the roles and responsibilities across the different teams. And so it's really a triangle. It's not just CS and tech services, but sales is a part of that journey as well.
Yeah, let's talk. So one of the things like we like to bring up is customer success can mean, we mentioned this before, can mean a lot of things to different people.
Yeah.
And we've had others on the podcast as well, like where when it first came into the fold, there's no blueprint for it, right? It's not like you can look to the past and say, okay, let's take what's already been built and make it better. It's actually something completely new. How have you transitioned into that, to the newness, to, you know, the infancy of customer success, customer experience, and found a blueprint or created a framework around customer success?
Yeah, and I'd say I don't think there's ever a one size fits all. And that's one of the big things is anyone who comes and says, well, for this industry, this business, we should do CS this way with these responsibilities. It really depends on the dynamic and as it's kind of unfolded. And so we've found our sweet spot with the roles and responsibilities between the technical team, the customer success team, and the sales team, for instance. But what we do and how we divide and conquer may or may not make sense for different industries. Our industry, for instance, happens to be incredibly technical, incredibly unique in that if you're not a mechanical engineer, you're not going to be the one talking through some of the engineering design problems that you could face when you switch from one system to another. So you have to have that level of expertise. You can't have a CSM that happens to necessarily, it's very hard to find, I should say, you can't, not that you can't, but have their role be so broad as to run every QBR and every, business long-term goals, but also be tactical enough that they can go and teach somebody how to do a left-handed fillet the next day. That's such a unique set of skills. And so we specialize where we have to specialize, and that's one of them. For us, we decide customer success is the relationship post-sales up to, but not including the commercial aspects. So we don't do the transactions for expansions today, but we will facilitate with our sales team to do those and work with them very closely. So if we're doing our jobs well, it should be the easiest sales our sales team ever have to do. They should just kind of get on the phone and close it as they would, because it's very transparent to them. But everything else in terms of relationship, making sure they're doing the check-ins, that's very much on the CS perspective, CS side. I've seen a lot of different models, and it really depends on, I think, segments and industry and customer sizes and ASP of where do you draw the line on account management, who's there to farm, who's there to hunt, who's there to gather, if you will. There's a lot of different models. For us, we've found this works very, very well with our segmentation. And so that's how we do it. Now, to be fair, we actually have 3 tiers of customer success. And so how we engage with our customers depends on those tiers. And so that's actually helped us be really, really efficient and scalable.
Yeah, let's drill into those 3 tiers a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about your leadership style, what your leadership practices are, and how your team members grow or evolve. Do they have pipelines? Do they eventually go to a tier 2, tier 3 team lead, supervisor, manager? What is that kind of career path for your internal team?
Yeah, it's interesting you ask. We're actually going through this right now. We're growing so quickly, which is great. It's success is a great thing, and we enjoy it. We've been very, very fortunate on our teams. But with that, so how do we think about the next level of next structure? When we started CS, there were 2 people, myself and someone really technical, Philip. And now we're at a team, much, I don't know, probably 10x, 20, 15 times, right? So how do we think about that? How have we grown it? What's been really great is our team, every leader on each of those teams has come up through Onshape. So every person on our team, the head of customer success worldwide, Jocelyn, she started as a CSM for Onshape when we were just getting started. She was one of the first CSMs. And now she leads the CS team worldwide, and she's phenomenal. And she, what's great about that is the natural intrinsic qualities that we care so much about, the customer first and all the aspects that come with that. She embodies it because she's lived it for so long. And that helps because as we hire people, that's the stuff that you can't really teach. It's actually one of the hardest things about being remote, and I'm all for, I love one aspect of this, which is we can hire the best talent wherever they are and embrace that. That I love. The hard part is it's how do you get the culture? How do you teach everyone what it means to be customer first? Saying the words is really nice, but until you really live it and feel that everyone around you lives it, it's hard. And so what we've tried to do is by having these great people on the team, and embracing and letting them grow, that has naturally kind of happened, right? You've naturally kept that in the family, if you will. But part of that is just kind of continually challenging people, creating opportunities. I don't have all the answers, so why would I have to have every answer, every solution for everyone? But we've done, I think, a great job of really embracing our teams, and it helps that we bring on great people. We always talk about hiring is the most important thing we do, and that comes through every day, especially when you have rapid growth. You can't grow quickly well without great leaders.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point there. Now that we're still in this pandemic world, and people may be listening to this post us getting back to business as usual. Who knows if that will ever
Yeah.
happen, or if it'll be even close to what it used to be. But a little question: I kick myself if I didn't ask this question. What is your strategy going forward? So as we return to business as usual, are you still going to hire people within a specific region, have them come into a home office of some sort, or are you thinking about diversifying a little bit more and having remote workers and really just pulling from that great, amazing talent, irregardless of where they live? Because we know that you can do the work from home.
Yeah, so it's if I'm going to be really honest, a little bit of both. So a little bit of our team is actually very remote. We have people all around the world. Our head of tech services for the at least Americas, plus a few of the worldwide functions, actually is remote. He himself is in Fresno, Cody, and so his team has, especially on the specialist like that, when you get into the specialization of technical talent and covering different time zones, geographies, it's nice to have that flexibility. At the same time, there's something about having more people overhear each other and talk around each other and be around the energy. And so I don't think it's a one size fits all approach. I will happily say I love Boston. I'm based out of Boston. Our PTC headquarters in Boston is phenomenal. And so I look forward to having the opportunity to bring our teams together and be around each other there. But it's not that's the only way. And I think what we'll do is on a hire by hire basis, a case by case, we'll evaluate the position and figure out what makes the most sense for the business and in general for our customers at the end of the day. So, it doesn't make a ton of sense to hire everyone in Boston if we're going to serve people around the world. So we got to balance those two. But I'm also very fortunate we work at a place that actually embraces that too. So I can say that knowing that that's actually exactly what we want to do as a business, is really support each other like that.
Yeah, it's absolutely been a challenge for a lot of the businesses that we've spoken to and had on the podcast, and just it's made people have to be more flexible and open-minded to this concept. And the tech companies they're typically ahead of the game because they're already like using tech. They already know like, oh yeah, we can do this remotely. We can be flexible in the work schedule. Already you had the same thing over at Textile, right? Where you could have that flexibility, but industry by industry, right? And not the one size fits all. But I think you point to a great aspect of it being that you can find the talent where you need to. So if you find a great programmer that's in Oklahoma City that's fits the bill to a T, then it's like, well, let's get that person on board and part of the team. And the culture is a challenge. And what are some things that you see that you try to do to build culture when everyone is remote?
Yeah, it's I don't know if I have the magic answer on this. What we've tried to do as best we can is we do a few more huddles, a few more cross-functional experiences where we actually have more of the technical team and CS team engaging together with more people, which is not always the most efficient, but it lets you kind of get a sense of personality, right? You get some energy when you see how the team interacts with each other. You get a sense of that just really the culture. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
But that's something that we've done some more social experiences, and then the other thing that we've done is we've done more inclusive customer calls. So we'll add more people than maybe typical for even just for onboarding, but to customer calls that they may not have been on otherwise, but just to see the cross-functional dynamics that we're trying to show, especially with some of our larger accounts that are well known. We'll bring some more people into that so they get to experience just how do we think about every customer. It's not just the large ones, and we'll do the same thing with the smaller accounts, so that they see that it's every customer of ours from 1 user to 1,000 users is really important. And so the best way to do it, I think, is to show it and then to live it every day.
Earlier, you talked a little bit about how your customers are really technical, not only because they're mechanical engineers or that like-minded, and your team must be very technical as well. Do you have some sort of either community or self-service where some of your customers can help support other customers, or maybe just an area where they can put together some feature requests? Maybe there's some product feature requests, and everyone comes together and says, you know what, that's an amazing tool. I wish we had that as well. Talk to us a little bit about that community feel.
Sure. So we have a forum, a public forum, which is incredibly well received and well self-moderated, I'll say, by our customers and our prospects and our user base. And for us, there's a lot of different dynamics. The term customer can mean a lot of things. It's the people who pay the money, and there's the people who use the product. And what we really focus on heavily especially in our industry, are the people who use the product, the users, right? That's the community that we really spend a ton of time with. And too often it's, in my opinion, not necessarily with us especially, but people spend just a lot of time on that person who's going to close a transaction or who's going to slam. But what we always have found that by embracing the users at every scale, and that's what we do with our forum as well. And then the other thing you asked earlier, and I didn't talk about, you asked about ticketing systems and how do we engage. Well, we also have a support team that's very transactional, and they use Zendesk. And actually, in our product, you can create a support ticket. It's part of our, frankly, our secret sauce. It's not that secret, but the fact that because it's SaaS, there's only one version in the world, and there's only one version of the data in the world, a user can be struggling, submit a ticket, and our support team can, in real time, see it, respond to it. If they were shared into it, get into it, solve the problem with the customer. It's twofold. One, we solve a problem much more quickly because we know we can reproduce any problem or anything like that. But secondly, we teach the user, right? We actually do it with the user in their world, in their environment. So they're actually learning how to be better for the next time. So it's a win-win for us. It's a win-win for them. And it's something that I think at first people were really nervous about, the fact that we do everything this way. And so asynchronously was very concerning in our industry. Was in the past was very account focused at the VAR level, right? Everything was solved by your VAR locally, and you had this really close relationship. So this comes back to how do we create customer success in the first place? How do we recreate that sense of belonging, that comfort, without having to build out, a regional distribution of teams everywhere on the globe at once? So that's part of what our strategy has been, is how do we recreate the best part of that experience while minimizing the worst part or the scalability challenges. And that's what we've tried to thread that needle at different ways.
One of the things that, we see a lot is, as far as like trying to track the analytics and the reporting and what KPIs are you trying to follow and things like that. How have you utilized the technology that you use and then using that to be able to track like what metrics matter to you and which ones don't? Because there's a lot of data that comes pouring in that you can use for, as a competitive advantage. Like how do you see that, and how do you use, metrics on your end?
So first I'll say is very carefully.
Yeah.
And I mean that in two ways. One, it's very careful in terms of we have access to a lot of data, and a lot of data we don't have access to. So we have to be incredibly careful with confidentiality and anything like that. So we can't access anything that would be considered customer confidential. We just don't have it. We don't look at it. We don't do that. And our teams know that, and that's very, very sensitive. And so that's one aspect, and we have to maintain that because that's our promise to our customers too, right? When they're accessing our service, they have to know that what we do and don't have access to. So we don't have that access. And the other reason I say safely is, like you said, we have a lot of data, and you can use data in a lot of different ways. And data without context is really dangerous, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so what we try and do is we utilize our data in a way that we can gain insights and add the context to make better decisions. And I think that's a nice and tough balance at times. The other thing you talked about with modern technology and tools, what can we do? We can use a lot of machine learning and AI technology to take some of this data and some of the outcomes and then do some predictive analytics or maybe machine learning to help us understand what we couldn't understand naturally. Mm-hmm. And so we do that. We actually have objective health scoring. So we actually objectively, based on usage parameters, and there's a lot of them, and it works differently based on different size accounts, but do we think this account's healthy or not? And by the way, that's not the end all. We call it objective health because there's also the concept of subjective health, right? When we talk to customers, we talk as many as we can, as often as we can. We have an instinct and we have insight from that. And so we put the two together, and that's how we really understand the big picture about our customers. How are they doing? What their renewal probability will be, et cetera. And where do we need to intervene? When do we need to, we have a weekly at-risk meeting. If we feel like there's a concern for a customer, we bring a lot of people together, more probably than we necessarily need to, from everything from R&D to customer success. And it's a company-wide effort. We talked about it earlier, but the term customer success in a team, customer success is overloaded. The reality is our entire business is the success of our customers. And I've already said that, but that's the way we think about it. And so whatever we can do to make sure a customer is successful, no matter the size of the customer, no matter the challenge, that's important. And that's how we use data as much as we can to support those decisions and the challenges and solutions. But we add in our personal context to help inform.
Yeah, and a lot of the people listening to this podcast, they may not have an objective health score. They may have things like CSAT scores and NPS that gives it kind of subjective single temperature check at random times. But with you guys, it sounds like you guys have a pretty decently robust objective health score. What for the audience, where would people start? Where would they? It could be a very daunting and hard project for them to start down that path. Like, where would you recommend to start?
Sure. And so just real quick, we do also, we do NPS, as you would expect, and it's very important for us. It's not a decision-making statistic. It's insight into what's going on into our customer base, into our user base, actually, I should say, because it's not just our customers, it's all of our professional users get surveyed. The people at the end of the day, like I said, users, not just the purchasers. And we look at that very often. It's something that's very important to us and how we think about how we are doing. That's one of our scorecards. But to your question about objective health, it's an interesting point. It really depends on the industry. So we have a ton of, like I said, we have a ton of data about the usage. What every SaaS company has, how often people are using the system, what are they doing on the system, how much data are they creating, deleting, exporting, importing. And the key for us was determining what we wanted to measure, right? What was the objective health trying to measure? And it's actually, we're going through right now. Actually, one of the biggest things is you're never done. There is no such thing as you have a successful objective health score. It's just like anything, you're always evolving it. Every day it can get better, every week, every month. And so continually challenging yourself to reevaluate it and to understand it and to measure the success of it. So what was the purpose of it? For us, it's to give us insight into the renewal probability at the end of the day. That's what we really want to understand. And so is it working? Is it helpful? And then we continue to evolve it. And as we add more components to the system, we have to continually retrain it. But there's no secret sauce. You kind of just have to get into it and get started.
I love how the SaaS companies, look at health scores and just look at, because you don't take your customers for granted. You look at the cable companies out there, right? It's like they're probably not tracking customer health scores closely as you are, because unless there's a competitor right there that can do the internet connectivity outside of the cable company, that's their only competition. And so it's like, okay, like the renewal rate, right? And that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about that. I was like, well, the chances are the renewal rate's going to be high because there's no other option. Well, right. SaaS companies, It's like we have to focus so much on this customer success and this customer experience. And that's where I love the evolution of this industry has been. How do you compete? We see the big Amazons of the world, and these big tech companies like Apple and whatnot that have done so well at like capturing market share. And it's based off of like, how do you make that customer happy and like get them to come back again and again and again? I just love how the industry has evolved and how companies take it so seriously now.
Well, it's critical. And the other part of it is we're in a displacement replacement market, right? People today they design products. Everything is getting designed around you. So how do we help them see that there's a path forward, and how do we keep them happy and successful for the long term? And so every day it matters to us, because to your point, they could leave. Our job is to make sure they never want to, as best we can.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we always like to end our show with something a little bit more whimsical, a little bit more fun. And we talk about customer service and customer experience a lot, but what we like to do is ask our guests, when was the last time they had a great customer experience with some sort of company or brand or service? It's really easy for us to remember the bad experiences. It's harder for us to remember the good ones. But if you have one off the top of your head, go ahead. If not, maybe Alex or I could.
I'll go first, so David has a chance to think about it, so he doesn't get put on the spot. So, and mine happened just this weekend, and it's embarrassing, and it's a little bit like it's good in some ways. So I borrowed my cousin's ski boat this week, and we went up to the mountains to the lake up there. And first off, he didn't tell me that there's 2 plugs on the boat to hold up when you put the boat in the water. And I lift up this hatch, and it's filled with water, and I'm just like, holy crap! Like this boat is gonna sink on me. I jump in the water, the back plugs in. I'm like, where's this water coming from? So we pull the boat closer to the ramp. I run and get the trailer, pull it out of the water, and it probably drained for about 45 minutes. Luckily, the boat was okay. That was just the first setup to what the next problem that I ran to. And that was overnight, I left the radio button on. The radio was off. I unplugged the iPhone or my phone. And I left the radio button on though, so it drained the battery completely out of the boat. There's 2 batteries, or big deep cell ones for a boat.
Oh yeah.
And the marina that I was at, super small town marina, not like huge, like fancy or anything like that, but they bent over backwards to help me out. They gave me like supercharger things to try to jump start the batteries. That didn't work. Then they pulled over their generator, plugged in the trickle charger, and I sat there probably for 4 hours trying to charge these batteries up, and still wasn't enough to get the boat started. So it's going to stay up there regardless. But I was just like, hey, can you do me a big favor? I just gave you like, whatever you want to charge me, but just come in there tomorrow, take the batteries out, charge them up 8 hours, whatever it needs, and then put them back in. They're like, yeah, no problem at all. And it was so like, I was just so spent because the whole day I was just sitting on this boat waiting for it to charge. But what I love about the customer experience is that they just did everything like, it was like no problem, like just a helping hand when someone needed a helping hand. And so I think for me, that's what boils down for customer experience is people just doing what's right for the customer, even though, they weren't probably going to charge me, but I offered a little bit to help out. But that's it. That was it for me. So
That's a good one. I'll tell you, I can tell you plenty of marina stories. Actually, I think marinas do a great job of customer service. It's not that dissimilar from the reason we talked about SaaS, but you can go to another marina a lot of times, depending on where you are in the world. You can always go to another marina, and they distinguish themselves that they have slips in the water and they have moorings in the water. So the distinguishing factor has to be their service and what they provide to you. And I've found I have a great marina, similar stories. The one that actually comes to mind the most, actually a little similar but different for me. Actually, I wrote an article about customer experience and I told the story in there. So, but I had a snowblower repairman this past year. So my wife and I moved out of the city a few years ago, got a snowblower. Used to have it serviced by the place we bought it from, but decided we were going to try a more local experience. It was fine, but it wasn't the best. And found this person who comes and does it himself. So came, made a piece of cake, came, picked up the snowblower, said what he was planning on doing. Sure. Came and dropped it off a week later and charged me less money than he had planned to because it didn't need some of the service he had planned to do. And then followed it up with some stuff he did extra and gave me a pamphlet on how things I could do better as a snowblower owner, not knowing what I didn't know, which is embarrassing since I spent all my time in the mechanical engineering world that I should know how to do these things better. But every day is a learning opportunity for sure. And actually literally taught me how to be a better owner of a snowblower in the process. So it created this, he was very transparent, very honest, which I love. And I think goes as a leader, working with customers, working with your teams, I think leadership, I should say transparency and honesty are huge. So that was one big part of it. Set expectations and beat them was another one. And then to top it off, really spent time on the rest of the experience for making me feel like I actually was more empowered to do my part of the job. It just was an all around great experience. I mean, I'll never go somewhere else as long as I can. And I just found that to be just, for me, it was very differentiated. For anyone that's done a lot of these service things, you never know what you're going to get. So,
yeah, I love the loyalty and how you can build it so quickly by doing right.
Yes, you can also ruin it so quickly. And the big thing's like trust, right?
It's true.
You can earn it for a long time, but one mistake, and that's why every day you have to earn the trust. This goes back to SaaS, but every day matters. Every interaction matters, and so you got to really be consistent with how you set the right culture and how you set the right focus. And so we've been. I mean, the big thing for me is it starts at the top, and we have John Herstick and John McElhaney, Dave Corcoran, leaders on our teams that just set a very consistent tone about focusing on the customer that I've learned through, and all of our teams have. And I think, and now more broadly at PTC, it's the same story. Jim Heppelman, the leadership team at PTC, how do we put the customer first is always on the first thing we talk about. And so I think it's a big thing, and it's easy to say it, but to actually live it every day. So.
Awesome.
Well, perfect. I think we'll end it there. David, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Alex, thank you so much for hosting and allowing me to be your co-host or your co-pilot today. I think sometime soon we'll have to get some sort of costumes in order, at least for a Halloween episode. Yeah, Top Gun, Goose, or something like that. But thanks again, David, for being on the episode. Pleasure as always, Alex, and looking forward to the next episode.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, David. Well, that wraps up the show for today. Thanks for joining, and don't forget to join us next week as we bring another guest in to talk about the trends around cloud contact center and customer experience. Also, you can find us at adleradvisors.com, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week on another Cloud Podcast.